Hello and welcome to Advanced Lessons in CodeJumper, Check for Understanding and Assessment. In this video, we will be talking about how we can assess how our students are doing in understanding the basics of computer science and coding. When we go through this, we will be looking at closing and check for understanding, as well as a more formal assessment. So the closing and check for understanding is an informal way to assess students' level of knowledge at an activity level. So each section of the activity of the lesson, we have unplugged, we have guided, and we have the exploration, as well as some other types of activities. And each one has a closure. So this is something that to have a discussion with your students, either as a whole class, small group, whatever you choose. So the closure for one of the activities in lesson 9 says, review with students that in this activity, citizenship is the constant. The same values students shared for being a good citizen need to be remembered so they can refer to them later when they are online as digital citizens. So it's a good way just to wrap that up. But for more of an assessment of how they're doing, we have the closing activities and check for understanding. So that same lesson, lesson 9 on constants. There's the activity to ask students to think of examples of values in the real world that are fixed and don't change. An example is the number of minutes in an hour. Again, this is a great activity for whole group discussion, one-on-one discussion, or small group. And to get more of a data point, we have a check for understanding statement. We have a table where the headers are check for understanding and completed. So for lesson 9, for the full lesson, the statement is, students understand that a constant is a set value, yes or no. So then if it's no, then you can go back and review. If it's yes, great, moving ahead. So, but we also have a more formal assessment. And in the website, we have a section for assessment, and there's 3 parts to it, and we're going to be going over those. This assessment is for lessons 9 through 19, the advanced lesson. And in this activity, students will brainstorm and develop their idea for the creation of a game, story, or song to program using CodeJumper, demonstrating their prior learning. There's different pieces. It's broken down into sections that students complete. So we know our overview, what we're trying to do, and then we can go into the project planning phase. Students can brainstorm ideas for the game, song, or story using all the concepts learned through CodeJumper. And in this project planning, we have a table where there's a space for game, story, and song to brainstorm our ideas. So that can be done in a computer science journal. It can be done on the computer. It can even be printed out from the website and handwritten, whatever works for your students. But it's really that idea of what they want to do and ideas for each section. What kind of game would they want? What kind of story? What kind of song? And from there, then they can come up with their project title. And then moving from there, we have our program creation, and we need to know what exactly we need in this program. So they're going to be using CodeJumper, and they have an assessment checklist that we've included as a guide to help confirm they've included all the components demonstrating their prior learning in these advanced lessons. And as they use these components, they can check them off. And these include the hub, loop pod, merge pod, pause pod, play pod, selection pod, count up and count down plugs, infinity plug, nested loops, random plug, the sound sets, and the variables. So all these different pieces need to be in their program in some format. Using their computer science journals is a good way to keep track of this, or however they choose to do that. So then they've created their program, they have this checklist, and then they move on to that peer review. So when they feel like they finished their project, they need to find a peer who is also finished to complete their review, so they can review each other's. They use their assessment checklist as a guide to make sure they have all the components there. And they can share feedback, and that feedback can be in many different formats. It can be oral, it can be written. There's different ways to do this. And then as part of that feedback, they can give suggestions. And this is a good step before they do their presentation that they've already presented to somebody. So that's really that peer review step. And then finally, they have their project presentation. They've gone through the peer review process, they've gone through debugging, and they're ready to show their program to the teacher. And we have an assessment rubric that the teacher will use to assess while they're presenting. With not only assessment, but they also turn in their computer science journal of what they've done across all of the lessons. So it's a nice holistic approach to looking at their knowledge, not just the assessment. So looking at the rubric, we have 4 different levels, 1 through 4, and we have a table in the website that breaks down exactly what each level means. So looking at level 1, student includes only a few of the required components in their original program and is unable to explain where each is used. And those are then listed are all the different pieces that we have to include. Level 2, student includes most of their required components in their original program and attempts to explain where each is used. Level 3, student includes the required components in their original program and clearly explains where each is used. And level 4, the highest level, student includes the required components in their original program and explains in detail where each is used. So you have this opportunity to assess where your student is and knowledge of all these components from these advanced lessons. So take this rubric and their computer science journal and look at all the components to be able to see where your students' understanding of the basics of computer science and coding. Thanks for watching.